Dear Rava, dear viewer or listener, whoever you may be, I want to pick up my story, my inspection of the issues of the core, the heart of theatre itself, from where I was planning to go when I got interrupted in the midst of the last talk. And the interruption landed so sweetly on the word love that I was suggesting might, in fact, be a digression of the chorus. In Greek drama, they could do so much. They could comment in all kinds of different ways on the action and the main characters, or they can sing a song on a theme of importance to the story or of importance to the audience and the importance to all of us. Love, of course, being the primary one, which is why I was so shocked when the director of my play in Manhattan wrote to me saying he was unused. He couldn't figure out how to direct this play because he'd never directed a play about love. And that was when, wonderfully, he said to me, he wrote to me, what I'd like to be doing is directing a play featuring a midget in a catsuit reciting Spinoza. It was a wonderful alternative to a play about love, but not so, of course. There is no play without love, and it made me wonder what plays had my dear director been directing, ever. So, where I was headed when that little talk landed on the word love and evaporated because there was no more room in the storage on my phone. Where I was headed was a consideration of something that struck me as lying inside the great, expansive world of dialogue that was developed as soon as Aeschylus introduced a second actor onto the stage. We then had contestation of various kinds. We had drama where before we had had recital. And yet, at the same time, I felt a contrary movement inside of theatre itself. And I think I noticed it in my theatre going when I was young in the 1960s and 70s, when I noticed that a number of otherwise perfectly realistic plays consisting of dialogue-dominated encounters, much in the manner that theatre had adopted for 100 years, came to rest suddenly, as it does in, for instance, Harold Pinter's The Caretaker, when, in fact, under the directions of the playwright, although there are two people on stage, the lights descend on one of them to isolate him when he talks, giving to his monologue the status, if you like, of a recital. And Aston's famous monologue in The Caretaker, where he describes what happened to him in hospital when he was subjected to electroshock treatment. It ends the act. There's no lights up and return to the quote-unquote normalcy of realistic drama. It's the end of the act because it can go nowhere after this huge confessional recital. And I noticed in a number of excellent realistic plays that they always contained a moment of reflection, a moment of, I suppose, representative storytelling, a moment when a tale was told which encapsulated the whole play. Mise en abîme, the French say, one of the words of post-structuralist criticism in which everything is placed in miniature. Why that's mise en abîme, placed in an abyss I have never known. But it's the idea, and a very nice idea, that one of the features of art, certainly one of the features of literature, I think, is where everything is miniaturized and summarized and brought to reflect itself. So I could think of a number of plays. There's a lovely play by Christopher Hampton called something like "When Did You Last See Your Father?" The title of a famous painting in which a boy is being interrogated, and Hampton turned this line into an enchanting play, and there comes a moment, I've quite forgotten the content of the speech, but there comes a moment when everything stops and somebody tells an enormous story, and that story has to be more relevant than any of the scenes, any of the dialogue in the play. If it doesn't dive more deeply into the meaning of the play, then it's worthless. It's worse than worthless. It's a distraction which actually destroys the drama. This is a kind of open heart surgery when this happens, because the momentum of the play, which involves interactions, is terminated and will never recover unless this deep dive into the soul of the play brings you closer to it. So there's a tremendous responsibility on it, and once I'd observed this, I used to say with my writing partner, wonderful writer Jeremy Paul, with whom I wrote a number of stage plays and some television and some film scripts, and when we were writing for the stage, I remember saying to him on a couple of occasions, I think we're about to need a long story. Now, had this dawned on me earlier as a writer, I guess I was in my 40s or 50s then, I wouldn't have even uttered the words, because what if my fellow writer had said, "Really, have you got one up your sleeve?" I would have thought, that's the last thing I have up my sleeve as a writer. And curiously, for reasons I still haven't fully understood, the opposite took place, which is that I would say, yes, I'll leave it to me. And in fact, often Jeremy would leave it to me, not only by leaving the room and taking the dog for a walk, but sometimes we would continue without the speech, the recital, the utterance, which I would in due course supply, because as central to the play as it had to be, it was also not part of the ongoing flow. It would not inform the scenes, the dialogue, the characters, the events that followed, because it would be a form of surgery. And this surgical intrusion would raise to the light the heart of the play. And then once you put that back in the body, then the body proceeds in its own fashion. And so to my amazement, I would sit down and think, so what's the story here? It has to be a huge step into events that we have not known about hitherto. And really it's often an occasion when a character will take us back into the past to a moment that explains not the events of the play, something deeper, something more digressionary. And I always thought that it was a moment I called in my mind, "News from Troy, my lord." So in comes the messenger, which doesn't happen. Maybe it does happen in some place somewhere, but not in the pantheon of Greek drama. However, my idea was that everything stops, because now you know you're going to be told something absolutely crucial, and there will be a tally not only of deaths and victories, but a journey into the heart of war, the heart of everything that informed the people on stage, even in their absence from war, even in the presence of the old men in the Oresteia who have not been to the war in the Agamemnon, who are defined by not having fought. Nonetheless, for them and for us who also have not fought, there is most importantly news of what it means to fight on the battlefield. And I thought in my mind also of moments in Racine, the crucial moment in Phèdre, when the death of Hippolyte, Phèdre's incestuous darling, that's to say, her passion for him, was incestuous. He himself was not an incestuous darling, but he was a darling, and the love she felt for him was incestuous. And the news is brought to her of his death in a most terrifying and bizarre manner, and his old tutor, Théramène, comes in and describes what happened as Hippolyte was driving his chariot along the beach. And it's known as le récit de Théramène, Théramène's story, his recital, his récit. It's not l'histoire, it's the récit. And indeed everything stops as we listen, and he utters great volumes of wonderful French verse. Alexandrine after Alexandrine pours out, telling us what happened. Hippolyte is charioteering his way along the beach when out of the sea comes a monster. Out of nowhere, out of, as it might be, the beating heart of the play, comes a monster, grabs him, and devours him. And it's all over. And that monster, what is that monster? That monster is the monstrous nature of all-devouring love, all-devouring passion, something that Racine knew well and wrote about in every single play. There's a wonderful moment which is a match for the Récit de Théramène in Bajazet, a tale that winds itself around the Turkish throne when the empress gazes at her prey, a little like like poor Hippolyte was Phèdre's prey, and he has pled his love for a younger woman, and she listens to the whole récit, the whole speech, and then she utters one word, all that is left of the final Alexandrine, which is 2 syllables. And her two syllables in one word, which are known as le mot, the word of the queen. And the word is sortez. Get out. Well, leave. Sortez. And in that word is everything. So these are the lapidary elements of drama that remain, I think, from drama's origin as récit, origin as, if you like, monologue, origin as telling without dialogue, without disputation, without argument, without call and response, without any dispute. The play wishes to speak. Excuse me, the play would like to speak, dear audience. You've seen a lot of people circling, interestingly, forcefully, violently, charmingly, insidiously around the play itself. Now hear the play. So I feel it's essential in some way that perhaps one shouldn't be too calculating about as a playwright, although I always knew when the play wanted to pause in order to speak itself rather than through the characters, or I always thought I did. Nevertheless, it's something that has to come to you from within the play, the need for the play to say to its own characters, hush. And there in that moment, then, comes utterance, direct utterance, not dialogue, not monologue, not speech. Pure utterance in which the play declares itself, like an avowal of love, like a declaration of love for us, the audience, and for the heart of its own story. And this has endured through the elaboration which is theatre, a huge elaboration of a declaration to an audience and with an audience. The chorus is there really from the start, but stands back and listens when a character brings the utterance, like a piece of religious ceremony, which I came to think is exactly what it is in theatre, when someone breaks free of the give and take and is allowed to simply speak, speak from the heart, speak from the play. Thank you for listening to this, and I will see you next time. I look forward to it. Bye.